In my last video, I challenged myself to make a project in 1 hour.
Come on, I don't have time for this.
And I did make something in that time frame, but I had about 5 minutes left to do the paint job.
This paint job is not gonna be beautiful.
And the result left me with the feeling that
No.
I had failed the whole project. So for this video, I'll revisit the project and add some much needed color and detail to a lifeless and grey little miniature. There are so many cool materials that you can buy, but for me it always makes more sense to try and find materials that are free and available anywhere I go. I've realized that what I enjoy the most about creating is the mental and physical act of solving problems, and try to find pragmatic yet creative solutions to anything I make. The sand I'm using here is basically just a handful of dirt from my driveway. To get the scale appropriate size of the grains of sand, I sifted this through our kitchen sieve, and this got rid of the big stones, leaves and twigs. It was still a bit too coarse for my needs, so I passed it through a fine meshed tea strainer. A small cup of this goes a long way, so I'll keep this for later projects. For any Scandinavian watching that grew up in the 90s, this box probably brings back memories. This is a salty licorice candy powder that came in these handy plastic containers. And this box in particular I found in the bottom of a cardboard box in my parents' attic. It still contained leftovers of some model grass I got from a friend when I was about 13 or 14. Apparently past me had the foresight to keep this for 30 years for me down the line. I've also made my own preserved reindeer lichen by soaking it in glycerol, and it's the perfect foliage for trees in this model. After adding so much loose material, I fixed it all in place with some thin acrylic airbrush medium. You can also use watered down hobby glue with a tiny bit of dish soap and get the same effect. I think one of the main problems with this model after the initial hour was the lack of color. Color has such an impact of the mood of any situation. And this time I wanted to really push vibrant colors into the scene. I keep a quite limited palette of colors, and I just mix the ones I need when I need them. It helps a lot to know some color theory to control the hue and saturation, but you'll come a long way with trial and error too. And a good thing about acrylics is that you can always cover up with new paint if you fail. Some paints have less coverage, and this red needs a lot of layers to become vivid. And I think the layering actually helps with creating some detail and richness to the house. While I painted the beach in a sandy color, I started to feel like the world was too empty and lifeless, despite the new color palette. I realized that this place was missing a patron, a guardian to keep the world alive. I didn't want to just buy a scale figure, so I decided to build one from scratch. I found a piece of electrical wire, cut a small section from it, pulled the wires out and used the insulation tube as the start of a body. I shoved some of the copper wires back into the tube. 2 as legs, 2 as arms, and 1 to support the head. I guess you couldn't say that this is anatomically correct, but having the right amounts of limbs, sort of in the right place, is a good start. In the same way that color creates mood, the shape or pose of a person tells so much about who they are and what they're up to. I bent the tiny metal into a walking pose and added an even smaller tube as the head. Acrylic paint doesn't stick well to plastic and metal, so I primed the guy white. I gave him a red shirt so he would stand out from the background. It has always fascinated me how these simple suggestions of form can read as something recognizable. Adding a bit of blue on the top of a plastic piece immediately becomes a hat on a head. A drop of superglue on his foot and he's ready to move in. I'm always on the lookout for resources and materials for these kinds of projects. And in my search for paper for a paper mache project, I found out that my local library throws out outdated and worn out books quite often. If you stop by now and then, you can probably save some of them from the shredder too. I cut out some really simple shingles for the roof that I glued on and painted. I find it really fascinating that you can get so much out of normal everyday objects if you use them the right way. For me, this is one of the pillars in creativity. Making something new or unexpected by changing or reinterpreting known ideas or conclusions. This roof was originally quite flat and uninteresting, but with these small changes, it really comes to life. A fun bonus is that the letters from the page shows through the transparent paint and gives variation and life to the surface. As a final detail, I wanted to give the guy a purpose. He looked like a working man, and I thought he should either be a lumberjack or a fisherman. I had some bamboo skewers close by, so it seemed logical to make a fishing pole. After splitting the bamboo as thin as possible, I sanded it and painted out some black fishing pole-like details. And here, at the last stretch of the project, after a slightly stressful first hour, some weeks of feeling like I left the project half finished, I could give back a sense of calm to a simple man. It's not about speed or accomplishment. It doesn't matter if it's an axe or a fishing pole, and it's not about finding the best solution every time. Sometimes it's just about finding a space where you feel safe and where you find purpose in what you love to do. Happy making.